Yo, what's up? It's your boy E.T. Welcome to another edition of Mass Impact, the educational podcast. Now, look, the reason why I started this, I truly believe that education is the way to close the gap, the wealth gap, the digital divide gap, the opportunity gap. Look, the American dream gap. Can I be honest? Everybody's not experiencing the American dream in the way it's supposed to be experienced. So the reason why we started the Mass Impact, the educational podcast, is to close that gap. Now look, mass is simple. It means motivate, actionable steps, which means what? We're going to give you strategies every week. So we're not just going to motivate you and inspire you, which is important, but we're going to give you actionable steps. And look, it's a support system, y'all. Thus Mass. It's your boy E.T. Now you know. Let's go.
Hey, what's up, fam? It's your boy E.T. Hey, I'm really on location. Like, literally on location. Hey, welcome to another edition of Mass Impact. That's right. The educational podcast where we motivate you. We all need motivation, right? Where we talk action steps, right? Because you can say all day you want to be on the New York Times bestsellers list, but you got to have a plan to make that happen. Got to be steps. And more importantly, can't do anything positive without we all need somebody to lean on. So we got a show for you today. I can't be with you guys the entire show. We just found out, man, we keep hitting the New York Times bestsellers list. We keep hitting it. And as a result of that, man, I got a lot of work I got to get done. But I'm telling y'all, you're in for a treat. If you think I can talk, you ain't. I can get off. You ain't seen nothing yet. Okay, so my mom's in the building today. Of course, we're talking about parents, but now we're going to talk specifically to parents about what you can do to help your child go from not caring about school to being a New York Times bestseller. All right. So please get prepared, and I'll see you guys next episode. Mom, we usually only do 30 minutes. So
I'll behave.
I love you guys.
I won't freestyle. Just give me a question or a topic, and I'll stay on task.
Well, hey, we usually keep our guests kind of in the back room and bring them in once we get started. We just want to have you here right at the beginning. For those of watching that don't know you, we have Miss Vanessa Thomas with us today. E.T.'s mom, if you didn't gather that from his quick little introduction, we're so honored and glad that you're joining us today. And maybe before we jump in on our topic, you want to tell us just a tiny bit about yourself, and then we're going to chat with parents and educators about how they can support parents today.
Okay, I'm Vanessa Thomas. I'm Eric's mom. Man, I'm in a very good place now in my life, but it wasn't always so. And it was really the teachers that were so instrumental in me becoming a success during high school, because I was pregnant. And it was the educators that really showed me the ropes, how I could not become a statistic. And, I'm here to share that, and just to make you understand, the teachers, you find the right teachers and administrators that see your child for what they are, even if it's good or bad. I had a lot of issues with Eric, but they highlighted the areas that he was weak in, which gave me the ability to find proper resources to see that he could become the best student that he could be. So it's very important that we work, the parent with the school, and the parent really to work with the school, because it's not the 8 to 3 program. It's all the other things that help my 3 kids become as successful as they are.
Love it. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for being here today. We're so glad to have you here. And as we're talking parents, we we've talked a lot about the importance of supporting parents and making sure that we have like a whole village approach. How do we get parents involved and help them to know we care and all of these things? And so today I'm hoping we can talk like tangibles. Like, let's give teachers takeaways of if I'm going to tomorrow make sure that I increase the engagement with my parents or the ways that I'm helping support the work they're doing with their students at home. What are some like tangible takeaways maybe each of us can share on how we can support our educators as they're supporting parents?
Now, is that question to me specifically?
Hey, you jump right in. Go ahead. What do you think? So as a parent, what do you think? I know you touched on it a little bit right now, but most helpful things for educators to do as they're supporting parents and helping them help their students?
They have to share all the tangible and intangibles with their kids. It's not just a matter of saying, here's the syllabus. Are we teaching the parents to make the parents understand that the kids need to have type of products that are just not yes or no answers. The curriculum needs to be where they teach inferences, which they really don't do. They need to teach the kids critical skills in reading a book. It's like my son was a good reader, but he did not understand. His comprehension wasn't good because he was a slow speaker. Also, I think one of the problems that two of my kids experienced, and they didn't learn phonetics properly. They just didn't get it. I was a linguistic reader, and sometimes the teachers need to understand some of the challenges kids are having, share it with the parents so that they can better serve their kids, because there is no one size fit all. One of the things I think I wish the teachers had done for my son in particular is he was a talker, always high energy. He didn't need to be on Redland, but they wanted him to be on it because he was disruptive. But no one ever showed the good side of some of these behaviors that kids have. And they make the parents want to just get down on the kid when in fact, the parents and the educators should talk more. I saw something that Martin Lawrence, I think is the comedian. They told him at some point he was so disruptive that if you behave and do your work, we'll set aside time so you can get into your gifts. Also, right. I wish they had talked to me about the different forensic clubs or things that Eric could have gotten into speaking that would allow him to hone in on his gift instead of just looking at it as a negative. That's one of the things that can cripple a child and defeat the parents, because I took their words and I never in the beginning saw the assets that came with being a good communicator, that you had these people skills. So I think the parents and the teachers need to have these conversations about particular attributes that your kids have and try to look at it not so much as negative, but how can we take this personality of your child to and help them thrive in the school system.
Yeah, welcome on again. Being that you are a student and a graduate of Dunbar
yes.
High School on the south side of Chicago. Most of my family went to Dunbar Phillips.
Okay.
How was it for you getting the support from like a guidance counselor, that was encouraging you? Okay, you had a child, but it's important to finish your education. Was that support given to you or was it absent?
Actually, the support was not given. I had a particular teacher, and to be honest, she and my mother had a confrontation as a freshman. So she had a bone to pick with my mother's kids. And it was true. She allowed her feelings to not be a good teacher, if you will, during my pregnancy. Now, remember, I was pregnant in 1969. I got kicked out of school. I was an honor student. But if it hadn't been for a counselor who said, okay, the law of the land is what it is. You can't come to school pregnant. You're gone. But my grades were, I was in the top 10 of my class, and I was about to be destroyed because of a personality issue, if you will. I got kicked out of school, but I had a counselor who reached out later and said, listen, the worst that can happen is you're going to lose one grade level for each of your classes. Well, I was an AB student, except for chemistry. And so I graduated. I was allowed to walk, but it was because someone cared enough for me and my future to give me some information that it was always there, but it wasn't spoken about. So that can make a difference when you've got that supportive person that says, hey, so what, you misstepped or whatever you want to call it. I don't want to destroy your whole life. And the administrators have the power to do that, to talk with a parent and tell them all the rules, because it was a matter really of financial life or death for me. I graduated Bondale, Dunbar, you're coming out of there with a technical skill or a vocation. It changed the narrative of my entire life, getting that bit of information from a caring administrator. So to the administrators and the teacher, look beyond the child, what they're doing that's wrong or out of pocket, and see what we can do to help them, because later they're going to need this education. Give them that conversation that will allow them not to ruin their life forever based on a mistake, no matter how severe it was.
Thomas, thank you so much for sharing all that. I worked at a high school for 11 years that actually had a parent-infant interaction program, like right in the high school. And so I'm definitely so grateful after hearing experiences like yours, and then now just the support, around teen pregnancy. And I just our students would go and read books at lunchtime, with their child. They're able to spend time and right there in the school day in a very supportive environment. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm just so curious about when it comes to literacy, and you talked about the challenges also, your strengths, and then E's strengths, and then the way that teachers were articulating certain things as negatives. What advice do you have for parents when even thinking about having younger children around literacy, and really supporting their children in literacy development as they're younger and approaching school?
Well, literacy it all starts with books. And for me, I'm a reader. I always was. So in my house, I read to my kids, and I had, make them learn the sight words. That's how I taught it. And they were always surrounded by books. And we would read the book as a parent and say, what did you think about the book? Not just read the book. But okay, how many animals was on the farm when we read the story? What are the animals? To really just get beyond the surface, the parents have to do their part, and they can work with the schools, because one thing I found, when the parent cares and they have some clear idea of what kind of support they need, they will give it to you. They give you a list of books that kids should read, what words they should know, how to use the school's resource materials to help your child outside of school, because it doesn't end at the bell. Parents have to read, and they have to even acknowledge, which a lot of parents don't acknowledge, that they're struggling with their own literacy. And I think it's so important that the schools know this. There's a lot of illiterate people, functional illiterates today. help those parents, like get into a club where they teach you how to read. I ran a program. I did a program called Junior Grade Books because I realized the schools don't always teach the finer points like inferences and cause and effect. How do you look at transitional thoughts, if you will? So Junior Grade Books is a super program. It actually comes out of Northwest University in Chicago. The best schools use that program because it's amazing. They need to share all of these things with parents to help them do that extra outside of school. But they also need to realize some of these parents are not very literate themselves. If you teach the parent how to get better, it's perfect with little ones because now they can read those little books. They're showing their kids it's important, and then they're learning and growing as well. And the more the parent is educated, the more they can help their kids.
I love it. I love the conversation around literacy always. And I love that you mentioned phonics and like making sure we're doing really good reading instruction, but also comprehension strategies, and the importance of pairing both of those things is huge. And K through 12, like it's huge for all of our kids. So definitely that's my prayer always, that teachers really are incorporating both of those things in their classrooms, but sharing them with parents is so, so important. And I love that you talked about parents that care. And I love just remembering that most parents care. Like we have to know that.
They do care. Right.
Yeah. If it seems like a kid isn't being supportive, as teachers, it's our job to assume the best, assume positive intent from our families, and know that sometimes they're overwhelmed, or they have a lot of children, or they work 2 jobs or something, but they love and care about their kids. And if we can get some tools in their hands to help support them, that's best for kids in the long run. So I want to share 2 quick tangibles. Maybe we can go around and give a quick tangible tip that you could give to an educator to help them support their families. But one quick tip, I made bookmarks for my families. So when you talked about asking questions when you read a story with a child, not all parents know to ask those questions, not because they don't care, but they just maybe don't know. So I made bookmarks for all of my students that went home in the books that they were supposed to read every night. And on the bookmark were questions for the parents to ask the child. So when they sat and read together, the parents didn't have to remember it. They could just use the bookmark right in there and remember, the teacher wants me to ask these 3 questions after they read the book. So in their hands, make it easy for them because they care, but they're busy and overwhelmed. Make it really easy. And then another thing, you mentioned some families being illiterate themselves or not having high-level literacy skills. Connecting them with resources that can help with that is huge. And so local libraries is an amazing resource to connect families with. So helping them to know the local libraries and what tutoring they have available, free support for families, and making those connections can be really huge as well.
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas, you talked about those sight words. So my son, he's a 3rd grader, and he bring home sight words every week. And then they do a spelling test on them. So last night in his notes, I'm like, let me see your sight words. So he brought them over to me. I have the issue and his agenda. I said, okay, let's test. I want to see if you know all your sight words. See if you can spell them. So he got 19 out of 20 right.
Right.
And we can correct the other one because he misspelled one of the words that he thought was proud, but it was prowl. So I said, go back and fix it, and then I'm gonna quiz you on it. So when I quizzed him again, he got it right. So I think, making sure that we have an understanding in terms of the spelling, the sight words, and we can probably correct and catch some things earlier on in their lives if we paying attention to, how they are pacing themselves. And you also talked about comprehension. Comprehension is one of those things where you can be a phenomenal reader, but if you're not comprehending what you're reading, that could be detrimental as well. So I have another question about Eric Thomas growing up. How was it for you when E.T. decided to make his transition away from home? What was that like as a mother?
It was one of the worst things that could have ever happened what I did, the part I played was, you guys probably know Eric's adopted, and I didn't share it with him. Um, but what I did do is I allowed access to my son. And I should not have done that without being open and transparent about his past life, if you will. Because as parents, we try to protect our kids, but this world, people have their own agendas. You know, you can't even say they're right or wrong, but given access to my son's extended family without being honest about his birth, it created the storm that came later because he didn't really share what he'd been told. So, teenage, you know, you got a kid 12 to 14, they're going crazy no matter how their life was. And you've got this boiling. I realized that I created the perfect storm, if you will. If I could go back, I would change it, but I will always say this: those pains that we have are sometimes a stepping stone to our greatness. Being a pregnant mom from the low end of Chicago,
Oh,
it didn't matter what my life was like. I knew my son could not survive that life. Vondell, you're aware of just the apathy and the lawlessness of that community. I had a huge family, so I was somewhat protected. But I said, as a firstborn, my son ain't making it. He can't make it here. He had that personality that would have allowed him to be very successful in gangs or anything because he's a natural leader. So I had to fight triple hard to get over my own poor life, if you will, in order to make him have a better life. And I think I was a little bit hurt that he couldn't see that at 13. But I realized that it was because how I decided to approach the situation. But it came of good anyway, because he's able to use his pain like I did to greatness.
I'll throw another question at you. Selfishly, as a parent of 3 myself, and you as a mom of 3, I want to ask, I know there's educators listening that are parents too. I want to ask your advice to parents too on how to manage 3 children with different needs, different personalities, and maybe how educators and their interactions with you have played into that as well, of how they understood your kids differently. But what's that advice for the lots of kids, lots of different things going on? They're all different and have their own gifts and needs.
Well, working with the schools is one. What my second or middle child, she's a great student, very affable, no highs or lows. So she was the perfect student, okay? But when her sister came behind her, they're 6 years apart. The teacher would always say, she's not like Nico. And I said, she's not. She's not Nico. Well, she has the middle one, AP classes all through high school. The little one was smart, but she had some social issues or a different way of looking at life. So even though she had high IQ, she wasn't thriving in school. Partially because the teachers were looking at her sister's behaviors, which was a detriment to her because they couldn't be more different. The beauty is that what you guys have now, I'm saying this to the parents, you have so many different public schools and type of schools, charter schools, schools districts that give money to go to private schools if it's an underachieving school district. For me, I end up having to actually pull my daughter out of public school and put her in a Montessori because she was so unmatched. She had second grade reading on a 5th grade level, but math on a 7th grade level. I was blessed to have the means to find alternative education for her. But what parents have to do if they're not able to have an alternative school, they really need to get with the school and the resource center and put their kids in an appropriate classroom for some particular, let's say for English or science. They it doesn't have to follow that cookie cutter, but it only happens as parents and educators talking to truly serve the child's needs. But it can be done. Or you can buy books as parents, like I did, Wordly Wise. There are several junior grade books. There was a Saxton math curriculum that parents can do on their own. And sometimes they can even get the schools to purchase those things and have them in the resource center. So it's all done, but it has to come from good, effective communication. The parent has to tell the school what their desires are for their child, what they're willing to do, and then the educator has to say, well, here are the resources we have, and this is how we can come together as a community so this child can get the best education or experience that he can get.
I love that, Mama Thomas. I love how you're transition to my next question, because you were just speaking about even that that importance of community, right? Like, so it's the school, it's the community, it's the parents, and it's like if we all pull together, right, for the education of our children, like that is so powerful and needed. So I heard you speak earlier about outside of school, right? And like, so you've got the school aspect, the children are in the classroom and they're being educated through that aspect, but then there's also like an after school and out of school aspect. Do you have any tips for parents as they're navigating what that could look like, whether it's, you know, figuring out, I know you shared earlier that a teacher shared with you, like, these are Eric's weaknesses, right? And then you were looking for resources and whatnot to like match those weaknesses. But do you have any tips for parents as like, because sometimes it's hard to navigate like after school activities and like what's out there and how do I make any decisions? So I'm sorry, I'm just curious about any tips that you have for parents as they're navigating that.
Well, a lot of the public schools get notices for programs, you know, and they're not always programs that are for kids that are falling behind. Here in Michigan, we have a program they call DAPSET. And DAPSET was pretty much a Detroit area engineering program. And the kids would go on Saturdays. They get exposed to so many different things to see where their skill sets are. And the great thing about being in an after school program for me, like all three of my kids ran track in a private club. So you're sitting there while the kids are playing. Honey, it's so much networking going on. You can find anything you want. I found out how to get my kids in free music classes at the Wayne State University, how they had a program where they can lease you low-cost instruments. There's track teams. And I learned so much with the program at the libraries here, literacy and junior grade Brooks. You talk to other parents and they go, oh, is your kid in this? And like, no, but tell me about it. But you have to be out there and you have to be open enough where your whole thing is, what else can I find for my child? And you start talking and then you share. And then I started networking where, okay, I'll pick up and you take. But you have to open your mouth. And it starts with the school. And the teachers need to be informed of what resources they have available. And after school programs are great because I think when a kid is in a program after school or a sport, it's tied to their needing to be disciplined, which is going to transfer to classroom. And when they have their network of kids that are doing things, they're stronger. They don't feel like the odd duck. So yes, outside resources, and they're not always cost. Very seldom did I pay.
Yeah.
But you gotta open
love
your mouth and find out what's there. It's there.
That was such a great example of just like talking to other parents and as you're signing your kids up for certain things. I love that. And I just love how you phrased it, is that it is, I mean, we're speaking about educating the whole child, and it doesn't, and it's not a negative thing, right? It's like there's so many different experiences inside of school, outside of school for that continuous development. But that was a key to success. I love that. Thank you for sharing.
And I'll add this. I was smart, but I was so sheltered, me and my 13 siblings, that I wasn't a complete person. So for the thing that I did first of all is found good programs for my kids to be in, so socially, emotionally, they could grow outside of just the nucleus family, because they're going out in the world. And if they're not prepared, they're gonna be behind the 8 ball. And that happened to me. That's how I ended up pregnant. I was so insulated that I really didn't know anything about the world. My kids, on the other hand, they swam, they played soccer, football, they ran track, instruments, karate, art classes, in pre-engineering programs. All of the community, or I should say, most community colleges, as well as universities and 4-year colleges, they have all of these enrichment programs for children outside of school. And they could be from the literacy to the math to the, what's this thing that is so important with the robotics?
STEM.
Yeah. All of these programs are available for nominal fee, if not free, at the universities. The schools need to get more involved in what's out there so they can share these things in their research centers, resource centers. Send a note home to the mom. Did you know about this? All of these things create a complete whole child. I wasn't a whole child. So I needed, and I knew it. So I just reverse engineered what my mom did or didn't do, grabbed all the good things, and then those that she hadn't given us, I added it to the recipe of how I was going to raise my 3.
I love it. I love it. I'm, of course, thinking about the book, the UOU book I've been reading. And so I'm thinking about E's church camp experience and like how that impacted him too.
Yes.
And so I'm just wondering about, the collaboration between parents and local churches and educators and what kind of power that can bring to communities and to kids.
It's huge. Yes, it's there. And they need to, all of these things, I bust my butt to find resources. But if it were something that the school and the teachers know about that they could share, all of this is for the good of the kid. I mean, every little experience Eric had, it left an unbelievable mark on him. That's how you round a child out. It's just not having a good student or you got the right grades. But if they're missing the social, emotional aspect, the nurturing or the collaborative side of them because they've never had to do it, then when they get out there as adults, even in college, they're making you learn collaborative now, group. Nobody is hardly teaching where the student is an individual like they did back in the day. So developing these skills now from kindergarten to 12th are just, they're game changer.
I love it. I got a note on my desk here to sign my kid up for karate. And now I'm like, I better get on that.
Yes,
because she told me to.
where it goes. Yeah, you just never know.
I love it. Oh my goodness. So much wisdom we could continue to soak up from you. How about, should we round robin here at the end and wrap things up on ways that we can help as educators and community support our families, our parents as they're supporting their kids? Lendale, you kick it off for us.
I would just take the last point Don't just focus on scholastics. Try to figure out how to well-round through community service, joining a club, learning a new instrument, or being a part of that. And it's something as a parent that we try to do in our house with our kids, is just make sure our kids are in swimming class. My daughter's playing volleyball right now. My son, he's interested in different sports. So it does help the brain, but it also helps them be aware of themselves as a person when they're around other people.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Oh, I love that so much. I would just say, I love how Mama Thomas just talked about just different interactions like with the teachers. And so I would just say to try your best to create a relationship with the teacher so that you can really understand what's going on with your child because at school anyways, because it's hard when you're away and you're not in the school setting to see. And this can look a variety of ways. It doesn't always have to be showing up to parent-teacher conferences. Like you may have to work that day and can't get out of work, but there are other ways that you can still connect with the teacher and the school and making sure that you are maintaining a relationship there.
Love it. I will just say my recommendation is more books in the home. I know literacy was brought up here for sure, but there are actually, I wanted to read a statistic I had for you. I guess it doesn't have a number, but the number of books in the home correlates significantly with higher reading scores for children. So that came from a research article. It is factual. So more books in the home and they can be free. Find the little free libraries. Educators send books home for parents to keep. Let's work as parents and educators to get more books in the homes of our kids.
And I agree with you with the books. I get free books all the time. You can go. One thing I love I'm doing with my granddaughter, she's 9. They have online books where you can either get an ebook or audio version, even on YouTube, and just sitting there and letting them hear the story and then you read the story. It's so important. And even the Goodwill, I go to Goodwill sometimes and I find all of these kids' books and I just buy them. They could be 50 cents to $1.25. But if I see it, I'll pick it up. And my grandson, he's not 4 yet. And he has his sight words that he knows. So he's reading, but it makes him feel so good. So parents, please, you just don't know the value of taking the time to read to your kid. You don't have to buy books. They're online free. I go to those little books, the people have those little containers.
Free libraries.
I go in there and I get a book and I leave a book. And if you take time, parents, to work with your kids reading and they get that confidence, then right there, you've got a kid that's engaged. But when they're struggling and you don't see that, that keeps them from ever getting ahead. So just read and ask questions when they read to make sure they're understanding the whole concept of what the story was about. I'm going to share this about E. I had him read a book, and I want to say it was A Wrinkle in Time. It's 5th or 6th grade. And I said, "Did you read the book?" And he was like, "Yes." But I knew he couldn't have because there were certain things that were so poignant that he would have had an opinion about. He would read a book, a chapter, and maybe go to the halfway to the back and wrap it up. So when we are helping our kids read and learn to comprehend and to understand what the words are saying, not just the word, but what is the message that the words are saying. As parents, we have to read the book too. I'm just saying. The kid's struggling with a word, I highlighted in the book. Let's look it up. Let's write a sentence so that you understand the true meaning of the words. We have to do our part when they're young. And that way they can take off on their own. But as a mom, if we're struggling to read, the best thing we could do is get those simple books, because now we're helping the child and we're helping ourselves as well. Because when we're learning all over again, then we're strengthened and our kids see us grow, and that gives them confidence and expectations of what education is all about. But we have to show that, and we have to use the schools, because those resources are there to help us prepare our kids for life.
Love it. What a gift to have you here with us today. We are so honored, and we hope you'll come back again and share all of the mama wisdom with all of us and with our educators for sure.
Oh, I'd love to. Just let me know, because it's a lot to share, and it's a game changer, parents, teachers. If we do our part, I come from a family of 14, and I believe 4 of us graduated from high school. There was so much churn in the house. And, you know, with so many kids, parents didn't have the opportunity, but you guys have the internet. You have so many online free resources. You are the agent of change, not only the parent, the teachers, and the administrator. Collectively, we are the agent of change for our kids' futures, and we can do it. And we just sometimes have to drag them along screaming, but later they really do appreciate what we do.
I love it. Thank you so much for being here.